change some colors, add a second checkout button above the product, not just down below, where, whatever it might be, and go watch your analytics. And did you increase things?
Mm-hmm.
Great, keep it live. Did things stay flat? Great, keep it live. Mm-hmm. Did you negatively impact things? Okay, maybe go back and take that out, right? And see if that thing that you did was the actual cause of the negative impact.
Yeah.
If you rebound or things stay low or whatever, maybe it wasn't, right? Like, you can go lo-fi on your science and kind of like just test and iterate.
Welcome to the eCommerce Podcast with me, your host, Matt Edmondson. The eCommerce Podcast is a podcast all about helping you deliver e-commerce wow. And to help us do just that, I am chatting with today's guest, Matt Ranta from Nimble Gravity, about how to navigate the complexities of generative content and copyright. A bit of a hot topic right now. But before Matt and I dive into our conversation, let me share with you a podcast pick, a previous episode that I think you're going to enjoy around this whole topic. Very recently, I chatted to Max Sinclair about the possibilities of generative AI. Do check out that episode. You can access our podcast pick and our entire podcast archive on your free, website, my free website, ecommercepodcast.net. Plus, if you sign up to our newsletter, you will have all this information winging its way to you. The podcast pick, the notes, the links from today's show, they all get sent straight to you, to your inbox at no cost to you, which is pretty amazing. So if you haven't signed up to the newsletter yet, what are you waiting for? Head over to ecommercepodcast.net and join us. Now, talking of Max Sinclair was recently on the e-commerce cohort, which you would have heard me talk about if you're a regular to the show. Basically, the e-commerce cohort is something that we do. It's a monthly mastermind, a monthly membership, it's just a monthly group where we all get together and think about e-commerce. And it's called the e-commerce cohort. And to help businesses like yourself deliver exceptional customer experiences, we've got a course for you, a free course, a free resource that you can take, it doesn't take long, called eCommerce Cycles. It's a mini course. It walks you through my proven framework for building a successful e-commerce business. I'm going to show you the specific steps we take as a team in our own e-commerce companies so you can see exactly how to put these concepts into practice in your own business. And like I say, the good news is it is completely free. And you can find out more information about that at ecommercecycles.com. That's ecommercecycles.com, which is brought to you by our monthly mastermind e-commerce cohort, which of course is today's show sponsor. Now, that's the show sponsor. Let's talk about our guest, Matt Ranta, who is a digital dynamo, which Matt, I don't know, it just sounds like an awesome title to me. He's the head of practice at Nimble Gravity, revolutionizes digital transformation, e-commerce and strategy for clients ranging from startups to billion-dollar giants. Oh, we've got the billion-dollar giants in there. Oh, yes. Tackling diverse industries like healthcare, deep-sea clothing, and endangered species, which is just awesome. Mac's expertise propels businesses into the future with data science, a great term which those guys have coined and explained very well on their website. They do cutting edge e-commerce. His team at Nimble Gravity, they sort of redefine success by transforming the way organizations operate and excel. It's a great bio that. Matt, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, Matt. I really appreciate it. Great name, by the way, and looking forward to a fun conversation.
It's funny, you can't see my diary, but if you've not figured it out yet, listener, we batch record, so we record like 2 episodes at a time, just so we can stay on top of things. And our next guest is also called Matt, but he's just had to reschedule. And I was like, this is the easiest day in the world for me. I don't have to remember anybody's name. I'm just going to call everybody Matt, and it's awesome.
And it's perfect.
And it's a beautiful name too, absolutely beautiful name. You know what? This is not related to e-commerce, Matt, in any way, but last weekend, a friend of mine called Rich Rising was over from Dallas. I was celebrating quite a milestone birthday, and bless him, he flew in from Dallas, and we had a big. He was here for just like 3 or 4 days. I mean, a hell of a way to fly just for 3 or 4 days. And we happened to go watch an England football game, and they were playing near where my mum lives. And so I didn't see my mum on my birthday. So I said to Rich, I said, let's just go to my mum's house and pop in and say hello. And he said, oh, that'd be great. So we went over to my mum's house, and Rich said to my mum, he asked her the question that I've never thought in all my years of living to ask my mum. And that question was this: why Matthew? Why did you name him Matthew? And I thought, I just assumed it's because it was like the first book of the New Testament. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I assumed that was probably it, because it definitely wasn't a family name, but I never thought to ask my mum that question. Anyway, it turns out it wasn't that religious at all. It was all to do with an actor from the 70s called Matthew Hudson, which my mum took quite a shining to.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's, do you know why you're called Matt?
I don't exactly. I do know that my mother and father made a deal where if I was a boy, my mom got to pick the name. And if I was going to be a girl, my dad was going to get to pick the name. And I'm very happy to have been born a guy, not for any gender-based reasons or anything like that, really, but just I didn't want to have the name that my father was going to pick out, which was Ursula.
Okay, so yeah, that's Matt is definitely. Is Matt calling all the Ursulas listening to the show going to go, hang on a minute,
wait a second?
Yeah, I know some lovely Ursulas actually, especially in the digital industry. So Ursulas, if you're listening, we do love you. But Matt is a very cool name. So you should ask your mum. Go, Mum, listen, where did the name Matthew come from? And then just let me know the answer, because now I'm really intrigued why Matthews are called Matthew. And it's worth finding out. So let's talk about generative AI, because it is a topic which is blowing up. It has been blowing up for quite a while. I say quite a while. In digital terms, we've been talking about it for more than a few weeks. So it feels like quite a while, right? So generative AI, things like ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. So what's your experience here, Matt? How did you get involved with all of this?
Yeah, same exact thing, right? Like it's been inescapable since probably December-ish or so, right?
Yeah.
But we as a group have been involved with OpenAI's GPT model since GPT-2.
Okay.
And have been actually trying to help folks create usable generative AI products from a standpoint of doing things like SEO work. Can you go in and have it create a huge number of SEO friendly content based products that surround your business? And at that point in time, it wasn't really capable of outputting much. We kind of got some funny results, to be quite honest with you. Mm-hmm. At this point in time, really, you can go in and say if you had a sister website, right, and you wanted to rewrite content from your main primary site over to your second site, where you were just trying to grab market share with a secondary brand, but you're selling essentially the same things, you could go through and utilizing the APIs rather than just the graphic user interface. Yeah. Utilizing the APIs, you could put massive amounts of content into the engine, have it rewritten and output in a safe way, as long as you're using good prompts, right? I think that's a big key, is the prompt kind side of things. And we're seeing this topic explode not only from a written content standpoint, but there are literally thousands and thousands of tools at this point, and they do everything from product photography to background imagery to ad campaigns to you name it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think businesses who aren't starting to capitalize on this are going to quickly see themselves left behind, because it's like nitrous for a car, right? Like a business can start utilizing generative AI tools and accelerate their growth, accelerate their productivity, and do so unbelievably fast and with high aptitude. Yeah.
So you mentioned this. I'm just writing notes, Matt. Hence the scribbling sounds in the background.
Yeah.
So you talk about using AI to accelerate growth. How would you, I mean, just from a pure practical sense, if I'm an e-commerce entrepreneur, I'm listening to it, AI is something that is becoming bigger and it's more and more in my face, right? I can't escape it. Yeah. So we're sitting there listening to you saying, well, you can use AI to accelerate growth. How could an e-commerce entrepreneur use AI to accelerate growth? What are some of the key things that they could do which is really going to help them?
Well, sure. I'll give you a couple of more concrete examples in that scenario, right? Say you have to write blogs or articles for your product, and this is something that, from a content perspective, you should be doing anyway. That process, probably, say you're a small business owner, right? That's an overwhelming process sometimes, right? I have to give up hours of time to be able to sit down and write an article or a blog and rewrite it, or I have to hire somebody and pay them, a large wage in order to do that on my behalf. And now what you instead need to do is be able to write a short prompt that describes how you want something written. Imagine you are an expert in the fashion industry and you're talking about men's activewear, and you're describing the new trends in, top layers, whatever, right? And you go on and describe exactly what you want, almost like a creative brief, right? And then you say, please generate a 1,000 word article to this. And that will happen in seconds from a platform like ChatGPT or Jarvis.ai or any of the other written generative content platforms that are out there. My recommendation is that you don't just utilize that immediate output. You want to go back and edit it. You want to reprompt the engine in order to tweak and fix things for you. You might say, no, this tone is too serious. Can you please make it more lighthearted? You might go through as an individual and say, I would never use those words, that turn of phrase, whatever it is, and put it out. And you've taken a process that takes hours down to taking minutes instead, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one. Another one would be, there are product photography platforms that are out there right now that allow you to take a very small number of photographs of a product. Could be a sporting product. It could be something like a basketball. It could be a clothing product like a jacket, whatever it might be. Then you can take those images and you can upload them into the AI platform. And instead of going out and doing a photo shoot with a bunch of models and a long time frame in order to get everybody set up, take the photos, go process them, put them back, go through and pick out which ones you want, you tell the AI platform, hey, put that jacket on a model of this ethnicity in this setting, and boom, you've got it, right? Yeah. All of a sudden, your jacket is on an African-American female in New York City hailing a cab.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to go do that photo shoot. You didn't have to pay for the photographer, pay for the model, anything like that. You've saved thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of time.
It's interesting, isn't it? That, I was talking to, literally just before we got into this call, actually, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a copywriter. She's bidding for some work and she's like, what do you think I should charge for this? And we were just sort of going back and forth. And she's been out of the workforce for a little bit because of kids. So she's now doing, she's sort of coming back part-time. And we had this really interesting conversation because because she used to work for me, Beth, when she left, it was a case of Beth wrote everything from scratch. Do you know what I mean? And would spend hours researching and thinking about blog posts and preparing arguments and thinking about sales funnels and just the layout of the text and what's the route we want to take them down. And I was showing her today how, as long as she knows the prompts and can get that information, that prompt written and teach ChatGPT well, the thing is outputted inside of 30 seconds. Yeah. And so, her skill now is not necessarily just in copywriting, it's in prompt writing. And exactly. Getting that copy out and then editing it, right? When you, here's a question for you, Matt. We've got this thing now where I'm reading more and more where Google is, you go to say ChatGPT, you say, write me a blog post on men's activewear or whatever it was you talked about. So write me that blog post and Google is starting to recognize now whether this is AI generated, and it feels like it's starting to penalize AI generated content. Now, is that just a mere rumor? Is that actually true? And if so, how do we mitigate against that?
Well, yes, there are platforms out there. I'm sure Google's policing it. There are things like GPT-0 that can be utilized in order to, put any piece of content in and say, what's the likelihood that this was written with AI? And it will come back and tell you. You can go test it, right? Write something in Chat GPT, go over to GPT-0 and see what it tells you, right? Then write something by hand, go over and see what it tells you. And it's amazing that it can even do that. But yes, that is going to happen. And I think that we as individuals are going to have to get used to, one, the fact that some portion of the content we have out there is probably generated by AI at some point in time, right? But then we also are going to have to get that mix right of how much should you come back in and edit that and change it and make it unique and touch it up. Because I think the search engines might over-index on a tendency early on to penalize against that, right? Whereas businesses are going to probably over-index the other way, and they need to not, right? Of like, I'm going to have them do everything. I'm going to have them write all my content, right? Like recently, I think it was maybe even back in November, CNET got penalized and had a bunch of articles called out for having infactual, incorrect information in them, right? And it was like 75 articles that they had done as a test, as to see is AI good enough to do this, and they had to go back and recorrect those, right? That's a process problem. That isn't necessarily an AI problem. That's you never sat somebody down and had them actually fact check what got put out, right? So there's probably going to be some mix as we move forward in the future, and I think people need to become probably a little bit more accepting of that, because those tools really do allow us to accelerate. And I think that it also would then get fed back into the AI engines, and their intelligence will increase and it will become more unique. And I do think it goes to that prompt writing you were talking about, right? That your former employee and colleague is now really good at. That's the challenge, right? Like, are you coming in and asking a unique prompt? Are you telling the engine to write something unique that it hasn't written before? Or are you just asking a basic question like, is the sky blue? Give me 10 ideas for a 15-year-old's birthday party, right? Like, don't ask the basic question, augment it with a lot more information. And then you're going to start to get much better content. Still fact check it, still rewrite it to be a little bit more like yourself. And then you're going to have some kind of mix. It isn't that much different than a copywriter and an editor at a magazine or a newspaper, right? It's a source of intelligence outputting a first draft, and it needs to be refined, right? That's the way I would look at it. From an SEO perspective, same thing.
It's really interesting because I was last week I had a well-deserved, I would say, Matt, week off work, and I spent the entire week either in my woodwork shop or playing around with ChatGPT prompts. Those are the two things that I sort of, and I've got to deliver some talks from the stage coming up, and I'm like, I wonder how, because normally I would spend probably 8 to 16 hours prepping, say, a 30-minute talk. There's that kind of ratio. And I'm like, how can ChatGPT, and there are obviously AI platforms out there. I mean, you mentioned Jarvis AI. I think it's now called Jasper AI, because I think somebody was going to sue them from Marvel, I'm sure, for calling it Jarvis. And so they now call it Jasper, which we used to use actually before ChatGPT 4, which we predominantly use now. And I was playing around on these prompts, and it took my prep time down for the latest talk that I've written, what would normally take me 8 to 12 hours took probably 20 minutes. Just going backwards and forwards, and it just outputted a series of data, which I can then go back and I can now edit and change, feed it back into the system and see what it comes out with. It's incredible, really, what it can do. So I guess one of the questions, and let's connect it to the title of the podcast. I guess one of the questions in all of this is like, the same with the text, same with the image, right? So it's creating blog posts, it's creating product images, which Max Sinclair's stuff does at eContent. And so am I breaking any copyright laws by using what ChatGPT has put out there? What's the what usage rights do I have, I suppose? Is this something?
Yeah.
If I guess one of the big questions, one of the big debates is if I say, add this product, my men's activewear, to a guy which looks a little bit like Brad Pitt. Do you know what I mean? It's like an AI goes and generates a sort of, almost perfect version of Brad Pitt. It's all a bit grey, isn't it? Or are there some guidelines in this that we can follow?
There's definitively some guidelines that exist in the end user license agreements for the products, right? So that's step one. I think that this area from a legal perspective, and I'm not a lawyer, nobody should take anything I say as legal advice, right?
Disclaimer.
But yeah, like from a legal area, this is going to be muddy waters at best for a good while, right? So here's what I can tell you from like an end user license agreement standpoint, and it's kind of, thought-provoking at a minimum, maybe scary for companies at a maximum. So we did some research as a company back in February, right? So a lifetime ago in generative AI, really, at this point. But at that point in February, we researched and surveyed working professionals in the United States and elsewhere as well, but majority of them were in the United States, and found that of full-time working professionals in the US, 45% of the respondents who were familiar with generative AI, right? If they first had to pass a gating question of, are you familiar with any of these? Of which around 50% of people were. Yeah. And then from there, 45% of those respondents were taking generative AI outputs and claiming them as their own. Right. So they weren't saying, I did this with generative AI. They were saying, this is my work product.
Wow.
And in that is a huge challenge. Right. So Jasper, in their end user license agreement, spells out very clearly, you may not utilize our content and claim it as being generated by a human. So any of the folks that had done that from Jasper are creating a scenario where they can't copyright that work. They can't actually claim it as their own. If they wrote an article and put a byline on it as, Matt Ranta or Matt Edmondson, wrong, it's not theirs. It doesn't belong to them. If you get into OpenAI's end user license agreement, you'll see some even more interesting things. Kind of where they go is if you output content that is 100% unique, then you can start to utilize it. But if you and 50 other people ask it the same question and get the same output, that output is actually public domain. It is not individual, and it cannot be copyrighted and claimed as your own. So that's where that prompt writing actually becomes even more specialized and more critical, right? If it's unique prompt, if it's completely new and of, brand new thought process, then that content can start to look and become yours. I haven't researched the end user license agreement of, thousands of these AIs, but here's what I would recommend to people. You've got to go read it, right? You've got to understand, can I actually utilize the output of this as my own? Some of them are very good about calling it out, right? Like if you're buying a logo or something like that AI has generated, they're very good about saying you have, unrestricted use in perpetuity for this. You're buying it as your brand mark, right? Yeah. Go ahead and do it. Others are burying it in very, very deep places, right? So I would recommend go read it. Go have somebody on your legal team, if you're large enough to have one of those, read it and understand that deeply. The second thing I would do from just if I were a company running a business where any generative AI could touch it, is I would have a policy for my employees, right? And I personally wouldn't make this policy restrictive in the sense of, hey, you can't use generative AI. What I would say is you can use generative AI, but we have to know, right? Like
Right.
we as a company have to be aware of what's going on. You can't claim a work product that AI built as your own and then
Right.
have us going out and copywriting it, et cetera, right? You're creating challenges for that organization. So you need to have something that acknowledges that AI is here. It's not going away. People are going to use it. People want to be more productive, but you've got to have some level of transparency within your organization that allows you then to make decisions downstream from where that content was generated and how it's being used, that people are fully aware and not, setting themselves up for a surprise 6 or 8 months or a year from now. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So is that what you guys do at Nimble Gravity? You've got a sort of a policy on generative AI usage that your staff follow?
We don't yet, quite frankly, and it's something that we're talking about, and it's something that we utilize fairly regularly too, right? Like that research process that you're talking about, where you're going in and doing prep for a speech or prep for understanding what are the differences between software platforms or anything like that. You can do that in ChatGPT, right? You need to go fact check that. Can you help put together a presentation? You bet you can. Can you put together a blog post? Sure you can. Can you put together materials that go inside of a client-facing presentation? You sure could, right? But how much do you want to edit that? And so I think that we need to practice what we're preaching, for one, and two, it's ever evolving. And so that's one of those things like a privacy policy that you're going to have to go back and revisit, right? Like, so, okay, GDPR, okay, Brexit, no, UK's own thing, California, CPRA, Colorado that I live in now all of a sudden has a policy, right? Like, and they just keep piling on each other, and you're going to have to figure this out as a business. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Part of me, I'm sort of sitting here wondering, I wonder if I said to ChatGPT, write me a policy, whether it would actually create the policy. It probably would. If I put the right prompts in. One of the things that I found actually with ChatGPT, and again, I guess it's the same with the other platforms, is if I give it copies of or chunks of content that I have previously written in my sort of style, my tone of voice, it can mimic that quite well when it's outputting the content. It can sound quite like me. Which minimizes my editing, which I'm assuming will make it a bit more unique because it's sort of my, do you know what I mean? My tone of voice, and I can throw that in there, which is quite handy, and it's quite nice because you can do that with brand as well, can't you? You can throw brand voice in there and brand values, and it tends to output it in that way, which I quite like. So, what are some of the credit? I mean, you guys are using it at Nimble Gravity. Do you use it on behalf of your clients? What are some of the surprising ways you've seen, I guess, generative AI being used?
Yeah, so the example that I called out previously of rewriting SEO-friendly content from one site to another is something that we've worked with and created models around. And I would say that written generative AI content is probably the largest area right now, right? Some of the photography-based kind of stuff is still a little bit new. We don't do graphic design or anything like that, so we're not necessarily looking at some of those, brand or campaign level kind of AIs that allow you to create a whole bunch of templates, but it seems like written content is the largest thing that's happening right now.
Yeah.
For real applicable use.
Yeah.
And that goes to code too, Matt. So I just want to throw that in there, like actual programming code that goes live in websites. So.
Yeah, I know one or two of our developers, they've started to use ChatGPT to generate code for them, which is I find quite funny.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, I mean, obviously they still need to understand the code. My friend who was a copywriter still needs to understand, is this copy right? Is it good? It still needs that human interaction, right? But But the interesting thing, because when I was talking to Beth, the copywriter friend, at first you kind of go, well, ChatGPT is going to take over my job. People aren't going to need me. And I'm like, well, not yet, not quite. And actually what I think you can do is probably put your fees up quite a bit for what you were charging by throwing the fact in there that you're going to use ChatGPT, and actually you're now prompt engineering to get the best out of it, right?
Right.
Because that's a higher skill set, I think, because there are fewer and fewer people who know how to write the prompts, it seems, for AI to get the stuff out of it. And so, yeah, it's a fascinating one, this whole world of where do you think it's going to go to? Because like, you've now got Elon Musk coming out and saying, oh, we need to stop everything and slam the brakes on. Where do you think it's all going to go to?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? He wants to write his own thing, and he's also promoting putting the brakes on everybody else's thing. Interesting.
Elon Musk for president. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is it going to go? It's so rapidly advancing, right? Like I do think prompt engineering is going to be an actual skill, probably an actual job, right?
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily going to be able to be a good prompt engineer for production code, as well as be a good prompt engineer for written readable content, as well as this is almost like you're the director of a movie and you're trying to tell the entire crew what you want out of it. And some people are great at directing Westerns, and other people are great at directing sci-fi. And some people do really well with documentaries, right? But you can't take a documentary director and say, all right, we're going to put you in this tentpole blockbuster. You're directing the fifth Avengers film. Go. Like they're gonna fail at that, right? So becoming a prompt engineer is going to be the job. And I think your education is going to have to shift in order to do that, right? Like this is causing unbelievable upheaval in school boards and all kinds of stuff too. Oh my gosh, my students are cheating. What's going on? Like, how is this going to happen? Stop that. Like, stop it now and start teaching them how to be prompt engineers and start teaching them how to be subject matter experts. Because regardless of whatever happens, you are going to have to be a subject matter expert to be good at being a prompt engineer.
Yeah.
Can you use AI to help you become a subject matter expert? You bet you can, right? Like you can go do research like we were talking about. But again, it goes down to prompts. So teach people how to use it versus being afraid of it and thinking it's going to steal and plagiarize everything, right? Teach them how to be good, curious, inquisitive humans that find a passion around something and then turn that passion into becoming somebody who can write fantastic prompts and direct these tools to your advantage. So that's what I would say.
That's such a powerful point, Matt, and I think it's very well said. And I'm smiling because I remember, when I was back at school and they just invented electricity. They were like, well, you've got calculators now. We had scientific calculators, and I remember when the first calculators came out that could draw graphs. And they're like, well, you can't take those into the exam because you have to figure out how to draw the graph for yourself. And I think education, when it realizes this is where technology is, how do we help our kids utilize the technology to be smarter rather than try and stop them? Right. Because they're kids. I mean, adults are using it all the time to make their life easier. And we expect our kids to go, well, I can't do that. That's just not right for my exams. It's just ludicrous, isn't it, really, in a lot of ways?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So you've got... I'm curious in the last few minutes of the show, Matt, if I can dig into, I did look at your website, which is nimblegravity.com. And I was really curious by this phrase, data science, which is quite a generic phrase, but you use it in quite a specific way in the sort of the junction of the three circles. What do they call that graph?
This is a Venn diagram.
This is where I should have paid more attention in maths rather than looking at the sine wave on the calculator. The Venn diagram. So just explain that, and how did you come up with this?
Yeah, so we talk about pragmatic data science, right? And that's understanding what you're trying to do from a general business hypothesis. What can you do, to test quickly, to be iterative, to, extract something in a very short period of time, to then be intelligent about that and move on from there, from whatever you learned, and create the next phase, and kind of creating this iterative cycle, just like you would in an agile programming environment, right? But doing it with data science tests and projects, and moving quickly and forward and iteratively. And, the Venn diagram that you're referring to on the site kind of shows, artificial intelligence, machine learning, math in one circle. It talks about technology in another, and then, brings in business and industry acumen into the other. And, that's subject matter expertise, right? And then that center overlapping area is where data science actually happens, right? So you're taking the knowledge of the folks within the industry, within the business, and their specialized subject matter expertise over years, right? And you're combining that with technologies that allow you to move and analyze huge, large quantities of data. And then you're applying, mathematics, algorithms and equations with machine learning and AI on top of that, and bringing it all together into the world of data science. And then you're able to output insights from an organization through their data that they might not have really seen before, right? Like, they might have had gut feelings that, the long-term employees that really understood the business in total might have been expressing these things, but you can actually put out the goals and the percentages and these kinds of things. You can do creation of propensity models. How likely is a customer going to be to buy from us? How likely are they going to be able to buy a second time? You can output, actual modeling around, people who interact with your business and footfalls and what's going on there. Any number of things, really. And it's a lot of fun. You can take alternative data sets and understand, what are people doing in their day, right? From foot traffic in stores, and, where else are they going, that we might be able to, modify our marketing messaging and placement in order to capture these people. And you can unlock these kinds of super interesting approaches to interacting with your customers that you probably wouldn't have done through traditional tools. Yeah.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And I get sucked into it, Matt. I do, because you just get drawn into all the possibilities that this sort of technology and thinking now brings to you, really, and the possibilities that are out there. I guess one thing that sort of springs to mind in all this is, it sounds expensive and complex. So if I'm just starting out in e-commerce, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, because obviously you're dealing with companies doing billion-dollar turnovers. And so it's kind of like, if you're starting out and you're sitting there and you're listening to people going, well, we can, do this data and all these sort of propensity models and all that sort of wonderful stuff. But you're like, dude, I've got like 1,000 people coming to my website a year at the moment, of which 15 are buying, and I'm trying to build the business. I think I think it can feel quite overwhelming for a startup. Do you know what I mean? An entrepreneur to think, I've got to have this, I've got to have this, I've got to have this, and all these tools that the big guys have got. How am I even going to compete? And I wonder what your thoughts were on that, because in some respects, it's not actually a million miles away from the guy that's starting up right now. But I can understand that it feels like a massive world out there. And so I just wonder what your thoughts were on that for the little guy.
Yeah. So a couple things that I'll say around that. There's a lot of platforms that are data science platforms that have been productized, right? That allow you to do things like price testing and creating pricing models, right? And so as a smaller guy or gal running a business, right, you don't necessarily have to have a huge data science budget and hire a bunch of people and, have this massive team, or go to an agency and have them do that on your behalf, right? You can utilize some of these tools that are out there. And, like the pricing model that I'm talking about, there's a platform called IntelliGems that, we've been talking with, and they do this, right? And there's some interesting things out there like that. But here's the other one, right? Like being a data scientist, I would argue, right? Like I think we think of it as folks who they have math degrees, they have computer science degrees, they're working, with huge data sets and environments like Snowflake or whatever. And right, like those people are professionally labeled as data scientists. But a true data scientist is somebody who is curious, who's willing to test and experiment and try things and create a hypothesis and go out and execute against that and see what the results were, and then come back and iterate on that, right?
Yeah.
And you know where you can do that? Excel and Google Sheets, right? Like on the low end of things. You can go back and do regression studies in Excel. And there are 1,000 tutorials on the internet about how to do this. It's built into Excel. You can understand what happened with your data in the past through a regression test. And you can even compare this to data sets that are freely available from, say, the government, right? I did this back in, I want to say it was 2008 with a couple super smart business analysts. They were data scientists, but at that point in time, they were called business analysts. And, we did the bulk of it in Excel. And what we found at this point in time is we were doing a regression analysis of appliance sales and comparing that to housing starts, which are available government metric here in the United States that you can download for free off of government websites. And we were looking to understand how the correlation between housing starts in the areas we looked at met up with appliance sales, right? Like that makes sense. You're building a new house, you got to build, you got to buy appliances. What's the gap, right? Like that's really what we wanted to understand and know when we should really be going to market and talking to contractors and trying to land large sales deals. And that's 100% doable in Excel, right? And I think it's more go figure out what your hypothesis is and then figure out the environment that you kind of need to utilize in order to do that, and get yourself, somebody curious and smart and good with manipulating data in multiple types of platforms and places.
That's top advice. So start small. Just start doing it, I think,
Totally.
Because e-commerce is both art and science, right? It's not, and the sooner you can get your head around understanding some of these things, the better, I think. And if Excel can help you and Google Sheets can help you, have at it. I mean, I've spent many an hour in a Google spreadsheet. That should almost be a T-shirt slogan. Listen, Matt, I'm aware of time, man, and I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface. So let me ask you one final question, if I may. Yeah. So you're a data scientist. You've got this company which is helping, all manner of different size organizations. You've seen a lot. You've experienced a lot. What's the one opportunity you think that e-commerce entrepreneurs are not taking advantage of on the whole that they probably should be doing right now to have the biggest impact on their business from your point of view, from a data science point of view? What do you see in all of this?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, and obviously a big challenge. And I think it's kind of one of those overwhelming things for e-commerce folks. But I'm going to go back to a tried and true standard that I unfortunately don't see enough people executing well enough on a consistent basis. And that's A/B testing, right?
Okay.
And this is a surefire way to increase the outputs of your e-commerce operation, right? Yes, sometimes that requires a good amount of traffic, and you need a certain number of visits per year to utilize platforms that are going to do that. And I think that's where people get a little bit scared too, from an A/B testing perspective. So if you can utilize a platform, if your website has enough traffic in order to be able to really get impact from an A/B testing platform, 100% you should be doing it.
Yeah.
You should have a team around it. You should be working iteratively. You should be, studying the results and pushing live new features and functionality and layouts and user flows all year long. Like, do as many tests as you can. If your traffic isn't large enough to support a platform like, an Optimizely, a convert.com, whatever it might be, I'm going to go lo-fi again, right? And just be brave, start, track what you're doing, write it down somewhere, put it in Jira, put it back into Excel or a Google sheet of, this is my theory, here's my test, I launched it on this, and go watch your Google Analytics or your free analytics platform, right? Change some colors, add a second checkout button above the product, not just down below, whatever it might be, and go watch your analytics. And did you increase things? Great. Keep it live. Did things stay flat? Great. Keep it live. Did you negatively impact things? Okay, maybe go back and take that out, right? And see if that thing that you did was the actual cause of the negative impact.
Yeah.
If you rebound or things stay low or whatever, maybe it wasn't, right? Like, you can go lo-fi on your science and kind of just test and iterate. And in that scenario, I wouldn't be doing a whole bunch of tests, but I'd be doing some tests, and I'd be being brave about it.
Yeah, no, very good. Very good. I love that, especially your product page. I don't feel like people split test their product page enough. And you can run different ads to different versions of your product page. There's all kinds of ways to play around with that and definitely do that and get involved with it. I like that. I like the simplicity of that, Matt. Not going to lie, I was kind of expecting you to say something in AI, but actually going back to split testing makes an awful lot of sense. And then, as you were talking, I'm going, that's actually the right answer. I thought that was very well said, sir. Very well said.
Thank you.
Listen. Matt, listen, how do people reach you? How do they get a hold of you if they want to connect with you guys, ask you some more questions? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you already mentioned the website, nimblegravity.com. So that's definitely a great way to get a hold of us. The other easiest place, right, is LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to the company or follow us there, or reach out to me directly. I'm on there, Matt Ranta, and happy to connect with folks and chat with them about any of their e-commerce, digital AI challenges, whatever it might be.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Go connect with Matt on LinkedIn. I need to check to see if we are linked on LinkedIn. I know it's not easy to say connected on LinkedIn. We should definitely do that. Listen, we will of course link to Matt's info in the show notes, which you can get along for free, along with the transcript at ecommercepodcast.net, or it will be winging its way into your inbox if you've signed up for our newsletter. Matt, listen, genuinely really appreciated the conversation. I'm loving this stuff right now. I said at the start, this show sponsored by the e-commerce cohort, which it is. And in the cohort, which is our sort of monthly mastermind group, we've just done a whole thing. I do this thing on ChatGPT on how to start an e-commerce business, how to use ChatGPT to come up with the name of the company, the products that we're going to sell, what's going to differentiate it, how we do customer research, how we write product copy. We had a bit of a laugh actually with that. And so, if this is something which has perked your interest, dear listener, do check out ecommercecohort.com. There is like a sort of a free trial, it's like $1 trial, I think, or something like that. Check it out on the chat thing that we did. It was great fun actually. But Matt, genuinely appreciate it. Love this stuff. Love learning lots of stuff about AI. I think it's a really interesting thing. So thank you so much for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
No, it's been great. Great. So thanks again to Matt. And also, again, a big shout out to today's show sponsor, the e-commerce cohort. The free training is at ecommercecycles.com that I mentioned. And if you want to check out more about the ChatGPT training that we did, that's at ecommercecohort.com. A lot of domains, but they're all linked on the website. Now, be sure to follow the e-commerce podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, because we've got yet more great conversations lined up and we don't want you to miss any of them. And before we wrap up today's episode, let me take a little moment to invite you to become a part of the show. Now, if you're an e-commerce entrepreneur or an expert and would like to share your insights with our audience, we would love to hear from you. Or maybe you just know someone who would make a great guest. Do send them our way. Just head over to the website ecommercepodcast.net and get in touch with us. All the information is on there. And in case no one has told you yet today, you are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have to bear. I have to bear it. The other Matt has to bear it, and just about every Matt on the planet has to bear it. And if your name's not Matt, you've also got to bear it as well. Now, the e-commerce podcast is produced by Orient Media. You can find our entire archive of episodes on your favorite podcast app. The team that makes this show possible is Sadaf Bainon, Estella Robin, and Tanya Hutzelek. Our theme song was written by Josh Edmondson. And as I mentioned, if you would like to read the transcript or show notes, head over to the website ecommercepodcast.net. Where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter and get all of this good stuff direct to your inbox. That's it from me. That's it from Matt. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.